to another episode of Bobcat Blitz, along with Nick Dench and Kevin Noonan. I'm Zack Daly. Well, women's basketball's in the NCAA tournament. Thanks, guys. Thanks from the peanut gallery back there. Women's basketball's in the NCAA tournament, but we're going to talk about men's hockey first. They're going to Atlantic City this week, courtesy of Kevin Bowie. And Kev, I know he's one of your favorite players. What were you thinking sitting in the stands? You see Bowie streaking down the ice, and he goes 5-hole on Andy Isles.
Well, when I saw him streaking in, I got really excited because I thought, could this be the opportunity where Kevin Bowie scores the game winner and silences all the critics? And he actually took advantage of that opportunity, and I was really thrilled to see him get the game-winning goal. As the QUN crew said, it couldn't have happened to a better kid, and he did a great job keeping his composure, skating in against Andy Isles and going 5-hole, like he said. It was just an incredible goal, and to send everybody home from the TD Bank Sports Center for the winter sports season in that facility was just a great send-off.
It was a great way to end the year, and I couldn't agree with you more. Really, Kevin Bowie is one of the hardest workers on that team, who really doesn't score much. This was only his second goal of the year. What does it mean to a guy like Kevin Bowie to send the Bobcats to Atlantic City on such a meaningful goal in double overtime?
I mean, it means a lot to him. He said it in the post-game press conference, how he really just took advantage of that one opportunity that he had. He had the puck all alone on that left side of the ice, took it in, did what any player would do, try to beat the goalie, got Andy Isles to open up his 5-hole and just put it through. And, I mean, he's such a hard worker, and it comes from all the effort that this team's put in all season. Lauren Barron, you can't take away from his pass. That was a picture-perfect pass, precision at its finest from him, finding the pass in between a defender and two defenders' sticks, and it was just perfect execution all around from that Bobcat squad.
So let's look at the series against Cornell in a whole. It's a series that saw everything from a Hobie Baker nominee goalie and Eric Hartzell struggle a little bit in Game 1 to an absolute thrashing by the Bobcats, 10-0 in Game 2, to a double overtime thriller in Game 3 that the Bobcats won. Just what was your take away from this series looking at it from a Bobcats perspective? What did they do right? What did they do wrong? And what do they need to work on going into this game against Brown?
Well, I thought losing the first game, I think it helps the Bobcats a little bit because it shows them how to face adversity. And you saw them struggle in Game 1, but then to come back Game 2 right after that to score 10 goals on Cornell was something I really hadn't seen before in my entire life watching hockey. And I know looking forward just for a minute, you can't go from one game to the next because if you lose the next game, you're done until the NCAA tournament. So it shows the Bobcats that they need to come back quickly. And you saw with 1 minute left in Game 3, they were able to pull Eric Hartzell and get the extra attacker on the ice in order to get the game-time goal from Clay Harvey. And I thought the Bobcats played pretty well all series long. I didn't really see too much in Game 1. I wasn't at the game. But I think from what I saw in Games 2 and 3, the offense was very good. And to get 60 shots on goal, it's pretty impressive in a double overtime game. And sure, you'd like to see the Bobcats finish a little bit more in Game 3, but I thought the offense really started to come together this series.
Yeah, and the offense definitely came together. The first game, they had their opportunities. Andy Isles just played phenomenally. Most of the game had a couple hiccups, which allowed the Bobcats to be in the game. But overall, they played very well in the first game. Probably the second best game. I'd say Game 3 was their worst game. They looked very slow after a 10-0 thrashing, I guess you could say, on Cornell, beating Isles 6 times and Kanji another 4. Kanji seeing his first action of the season other than senior day. So he really hadn't seen anything. I mean, this Bobcats team really showing that they can score. I was a little nervous after Game 2 thinking they're not going to score at all because they just scored 10 goals. But Andy Isles came out in Game 1 and Game 3 with a vengeance. Did not want to lose that series. His career is now over. Great career out in Cornell, but I mean, you got to look at the Bobcats. They have to be happy with the series, beating a very tough Cornell team. Yes, they were a 9 seed, but it's a team that was number 4 in the country at one point. Defensively, for the most part, they were very strong. Had a couple hiccups in the third game, and that's where Cornell scored both their goals. So if they can cut back on those 2 mistakes that they had in giving Brown on Friday to breakaways. If they can keep Brown off breakaways, keep Brown from crashing the net on scrums, I think they can come out really handily in that game.
Now, Eric Hartzell's had a phenomenal year, but the one area where he really has struggled on is breakaways. We've seen him make a couple stellar saves, but for the most part, he's struggled in stopping breakaways. Is that something we have to worry about, or the Bobcats have to worry about going forward, especially now that it's, you lose and you're done. You lose in the semifinals or finals of the ECAC tournament, you're still going to move on to the national tournament. But really, if that letting in a goal on a breakaway could be the difference between moving on and advancing if you're the Bobcats.
I don't think it's necessarily a problem for Eric Hartzell per se, but I think it's a problem for the Bobcats defense because they need to be able to get back and keep the forwards from the opposing team, whoever it may be, in front of them, because going one-on-one with Eric Hartzell, yeah, he's one of the top goaltenders in the country, but it's always a one-on-one is always a tough opportunity for a goaltender to stop because it's really the forward's way. He can do whatever he wants, and you have to make your quick reaction to it. So I think if Quinnipiac can get back quicker on defense or stay home more defensively and not allow those breakaway opportunities, I think the defense is what needs to be worried more than Hartzell in those situations.
Yeah, and I mean, both goals on Saturday, I watched the replays, were mainly Zach Curry's fault. He does not make many mistakes. He made two, and Cornell capitalized on both. The first one, he just overskated the attacker, Braden Birch, who is a defenseman, made a very good move and beat Hartzell, but he had the opportunity because Zach Curry overskated him. And then the second goal, Curry just with a turnover, very uncharacteristic of Curry. They just got to cut back on those turnovers and stay in position. We've seen them do it this year, and those are the games where their defense gives up one goal max.
All right, focusing on the semifinal game against Brown. It's a matchup that I know we've all been talking about ever since the ECAC playoffs started. It's the one team I don't think the Bobcats want to face because Brown always plays the Bobcats really, really tough. They've shown it this year twice, tying the Bobcats 1-1 in Rhode Island and coming here to Hamden and tying the game 3-3 after being down 3-1 with less than 2 minutes to go. So if you're Coach Rand Pecknold and if you're the Bobcats, what's the one thing you got to focus in on to beat Brown, especially since they have such a great goalie in Borelli?
I think you just need to be focused and play all 60 minutes of the hockey game and more if you end up going to overtime, because you saw the game in Hamden, they allowed 2 goals in the last couple minutes of the game, so you don't play all 60 minutes of the game, it's going to be tough to win. So if you can score first and get a lead to maintain throughout the entire game and keep adding to that lead, as you saw in the 10-0 win over Cornell, if you can keep adding to a lead and keep burying your opponent, I think that's what will be best for Quinnipiac. Yes, they were up, I believe it was 3-0 at one point on Brown. If not, the lead was 3-1 at the most. But you have to be able to maintain that lead and stay in control of the game at times against Brown. Brown ends up taking over the pace of the game. So if you can limit their opportunities and keep your lead that you built in the beginning of the game, that's going to be the recipe for success.
Yeah, I think for the Bobcats, they gotta play Bobcats hockey. They gotta stay disciplined, stay out of the box, which they did fairly well. First game, they didn't do very well. Second game, everybody was in the box, so it doesn't really matter.
184 penalty minutes, everyone's going to get their chance.
Yeah, everybody's in the box game too, so any penalty was negated by both teams. But overall, game 3, I think they only had 1 penalty, or 2 max. They didn't get called for that much. They did a very good job. Staying home defensively is a key for this team. Blocking shots, they've done so well all season. And I think 2 of the players defensively the Bobcats really rely on is Zack Daly and Danny Federico. Both of them have been huge. Davies really showing what he can do in game 3. And both those players are just great defensively. They're very good at staying in their position. If those 2 players can stay on track with what they've been doing this season, and they put the puck in the net, and as Kev said, just bury Brown. Brown's a very opportune team. If they're going to get that opportunity, they will put it home. If they keep pushing at it, they're going to put one home. Just stay in position, bury them early like they did Cornell, and Bobcats should be making an ECAC Finals appearance and clinching Providence at the same time.
All right, one player you guys want to see step up big on the Bobcats this weekend, Kev.
Oh, there's so many opportunities. I'm
One.
not even sure.
You have to pick one.
I think I'd like to see Kevin Bowie keeps stepping up.
How did I know you were going to say Bowie?
Because you need to have production from all four lines, and with Bowie playing on the fourth line, if he can keep adding production, that makes Brown have to focus on every single line. So I think it would be important for Kevin Bowie and other members of that fourth line as well, just to keep the pressure on when they're on the ice. We saw Kevin Bowie do a great job forechecking in that overtime period and really put pressure on Cornell's defense. So if he can keep up his play that he did in Game 3, I think it would be very important for the Bobcats' success.
Somebody we haven't seen score a goal in over a month. Jeremy Langlois, 99 career points. He's on the cusp of getting his name on one of those banners. 99 career points. Could not score in Game 1. Had 3 or 4 huge opportunities, just pushing it wide. He is the key player for this Bobcats team. He was leading the team with 12 goals for most of the season. Didn't score in the last month and a half. Jordan Samuels-Thomas now leads the team with 14 goals. We need to see Jeremy Langlois step up for this Bobcats team if they want to not only win the ECAC conference, the ECAC championship, but they're going to need him to go far in the NCAA tournament as well.
All right, so the Bobcats take on Brown in the ECAC semifinals this Friday at 4 p.m. If they win, they will play the winner of the 7 p.m. game on Friday, Yale or Union. So ECAC finals could be the Bobcats versus the Bulldogs, Part 3. You're going to have to wait and find out. We're going to take a quick break here on Bobcat Blitz. When we come back, we're going to be talking women's basketball, who is going to their first ever NCAA tournament. Stay with us. And welcome back to Bobcat Blitz, along with Nick Dench and Kevin Noonan. I'm Zack Daly. There it is, waiting for it. So, focusing our attention on women's basketball, they have arguably had a better season than the men's ice hockey team. Undefeated in conference play, 2 losses all season long, and hard work pays off. They got the 13 seed in the NCAA tournament. They're taking on Maryland this Saturday at 11:15 a.m. Just remark on this run that this team's been on. We've been, everyone's been talking all year, this is a very special team. Well, they finally went out and they proved that they're arguably the best team that the NEC may ever see in women's basketball. I don't think another team for a long time is going to undefeated in conference play. Just where do you think this ranks in retrospect?
In the Northeast Conference, I think this has to be one of the best seasons. I believe it's one of only 5 seasons that a team has gone undefeated in conference play. So to be able to be a part of that club is very impressive, and I think it may leave a sour taste in the other teams in the NEC because Quinnipiac's leaving the conference next year, so these teams aren't going to have the chance to get revenge in the upcoming season. And I just think this team didn't get the attention they deserved all season long. For the early part of the season, they were overshadowed by the men's ice hockey streak, but now this team hasn't lost since the year 2012. When they lost to Georgia Tech in the Florida International Tournament. So they haven't lost since December 27th. They beat Northeastern December 29th, and that started their 23-game winning streak. And they're just on an incredible run. And it's not just been one player that stepped up for this team. It's been every single player on this team. And I say this week in and week out on whatever show I'm on. I've never seen a team more balanced and have this much depth in my entire life watching basketball. Every single player can play at the Division I level. Many times you see a few players that may be a little shaky at the Division I level that you question should be on the team. This team, every player is a Division I player.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with that wholeheartedly and go even a step further and say this is probably the only Division I team in any sport I've ever seen this balanced. Yes, it's not the most talented team in the country. You're going to run into a Baylor who has Brittany Griner. You're going to run into Notre Dames and Dukes and UConns. They have better players. But Quinnipiac has a better core team. 12 players who Coach Tricia Fabry can run out on the floor whenever she needs them to, and they will deliver. We saw it in the championship game. Jazz Martin, 2 quick fouls, got to run that second line out. They put Katie Carroll in, and Katie Carroll comes in with a few huge rebounds, a couple blocks, a couple points. She can rely on her 11th and 12th players off that bench And that just makes this Bobcats team so special. It's a huge run for them. Definitely agree. Every NEC team can't be happy that they don't get another shot. The only team that gets another shot is Monmouth. Monmouth also going over to the MAC with Quinnipiac. So it's a very bittersweet thing for the NEC as a conference to see. You got to love, as the officials of the conference, that's a great season. And the way Quinnipiac ended it could not have been a better way to end it. 39-point victory in the NEC championship game. Broke 2 NEC playoff records, holding St. Francis University to a NEC tournament record low 33 points and winning by an NEC tournament high 39 points. So that's just a great way for a team to end its NEC run and a perfect season.
Yeah, the three of us were on the call for the semifinal game against Mount St. Mary's, and I think all three of us agreed that was, I think, we were never more nervous at any point during the season than we were during that game that the Bobcats could lose. But, they fought through it, and then they go into Sunday's championship game against the 11-time NEC champion, St. Francis University. And we're all thinking, especially after the way they played Wednesday, it's going to be a very close game. It's going to be a good game. St. Francis University has Allie Williams, arguably the best player in the NEC, but they go out and they destroy them. And you took my next question right out of my mouth. That's got to be one of the sweetest ways to end any season. That's just, the cherry on top. Going out, beating a very, very good team, setting records, and that really just caps off their entire season, because this hasn't been a team that's been winning close games all season. This is a team that's been blowing teams out. I think they're 23rd team in the nation for scoring margin. They usually outscore their opponents on average by about 14.5 points. So just a great way to end the season if you're the women, or end the NEC season if you're the women's basketball team.
Yeah, you said it best, Daly. It's incredible to finish 30-2. You go essentially 21-0 in your conference if you include the 3 playoff games, and I've never seen a season with this much success. I've watched many undefeated UConn teams, and they've done very well, but it's only been with 8 players. This team runs 12 players out there, and these players are willing to sacrifice their playing time for the betterment of the team. No player averages over 28 minutes a game, which is absolutely incredible. So I can't put a figure on it, because this team is so special. And then to get to the NCAA tournament for the first time, you're the 13 seed, and they've just accomplished everything you could want to accomplish as a team. Coming out of the Northeast Conference, I think no other team could do much better in the history of the Northeast Conference.
Yeah, 30 wins, 2 losses. Only one of 5 teams with that NEC championship win in the country with 30 wins. So, this Bobcats team has to be able to take that out of the season, the perfect NEC season, the perfect season almost. You take away the Hartford loss and the Georgia Tech loss, 2 very good basketball programs, and you have a perfect season with this Bobcats team who has worked so hard. Ken Sweeten, one of the SIDs here at Quinnipiac, said in his time here he has never seen a team that's so one. They work so well together as this women's basketball team, and he's seen a lot of teams here.
There have been great teams that we've seen before this, but we are a lot closer to this team. We cover them on a daily basis. I personally don't think I'll ever get to cover a team this good with this much success, this much chemistry in my lifetime ever again. It was a truly special thing to watch, but we got to turn our attention to the game against Maryland. Do you think they have a chance that a 13 seed going up against the number 4 seed? And honestly, I can see them beating Maryland. This is a very, very talented Bobcats team that a lot of the major teams are probably underestimating.
Well, in the women's game, you don't necessarily see a lot of upsets in the NCAA tournament, and I'm not saying this as a Bobcat fan, I honestly think that Quinnipiac has a legitimate chance of beating the Maryland Terrapins. Just briefly looking at the statistics last night, Maryland averages about 75 points a game. Quinnipiac averages just above 71. And in many statistical categories, me and Nick actually looked at a bar chart, and the numbers work very similar between Quinnipiac and Maryland. I know Maryland plays in the ACC, Quinnipiac only in the Northeast Conference, but I think Quinnipiac's talent and their depth can match up with Maryland because Maryland is an unhealthy team at this point in the season. They only have 8 players that they can play. So if Quinnipiac can get a few of them in foul trouble and just keep running their offense where they steal the ball and go quickly in transition, Quinnipiac could run over this Maryland team and head into the second round and pick up the first NCAA tournament victory in school history.
And to add on to the first NCAA tournament victory in school history, it would also be the first NCAA tournament in Northeast Conference history between both men's and women's. So this is a Bobcats team who already made history. They're looking to make more, and the team being with them yesterday, me and you, Kev, at the selection show, they were confident. They're a very confident team, and that is the reason that leads me to believe that they can beat this Maryland team. Mind you, it is at Maryland. So Maryland has a home game in the NCAA tournament. But you look at this Bobcats team, their families aren't that far away. We have students that I know of that are going to the game. So it may not be the most conventional NCAA tournament game, but both teams will have fans present. Both teams are going to be playing their hearts out. Quinnipiac's playing for all the right reasons. Maryland's been here before. So we look at the two teams, you have to give the leg up to Maryland. But as you said, many statistical categories, very close. Maryland had significantly better at scoring points. Quinnipiac, a little better at getting rebounds, especially offensive rebounds. So second chance opportunities are going to be huge in that game.
And just looking down past the first round, there's a possibility we could see a Quinnipiac-Marist matchup in the second round. If Marist pulls off the first round upset, they're the 12 seed in the same region as Quinnipiac, which is going to be, I know John Alba, he's been talking a lot about this rivalry on Twitter with a bunch of his colleagues and followers. We could see a preview of arguably one of the up-and-coming rivalries in, the Northeast in women's basketball. So that would be a great thing to get a look at. But, again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So just, once again, hats off to the women's basketball team on a great season. And just overall, great season at the bank this year. And I don't think it could have been topped off any better than Quinnipiac women's basketball team winning the NEC and then the men going to Atlantic City in double overtime. So just what were your experiences at the bank this year from a fan, from, covering the games, just, one of the more memorable seasons?
I can't even count how many games I went to at the bank this year. There were days where I spent 12 hours in the TD Bank Sports Center. I'd be there from 10 in the morning until 10 at night. There were days where I saw 4 games in one day. There were days where I saw only 2, but there would be overtime games. Went to the triple overtime game for the women's hockey team. It was at double overtime for the men's ice hockey team. I think I've gotten to see just about everything that I could ever want to see. And then just to be able to be on the court and courtside watching the women's basketball team win the Northeast Conference Championship, to see the team rush the court, to see the fans rush the court, to see them get to cut down the nets, hold up the championship trophy. It was something, I talked about this with a few people, and I said, I see this on TV every year. I watch schools be able to cut down the nets and win a championship. I never thought I'd get to see it in person in my life. And here I am, a junior in college, and I get to see my school in person cut down the nets and win a championship. And just, that was the highlight of my season. I know it may sound cliche to see a championship, but it's something I've always wanted to see in that fashion, and I finally got to see it.
Yeah, and this is definitely a season to remember as both a fan and a media member. I mean, we legitimately saw everything this year. We saw upsets, women's hockey team beating Cornell. We saw fan favorites doing something we're not used to seeing them doing, and Kevin Bowie scoring and Kristen Eklund scoring.
I was going to say that.
We saw championships being won, both regular season and playoffs. We saw a perfect season. We saw a 21-game unbeaten streak. We're in the midst of a 23-game unbeaten streak.
Undefeated streak for women's basketball.
Oh, it's an unbeaten streak.
Men's hockey, you can tie unbeaten streak. Women's basketball, undefeated.
Regardless. 23 games, they haven't lost. I mean, it's just been phenomenal. And you said you can't count how many games you've been to. I can tell you how many games I haven't been to, and that's 17 games between all 4 teams this year. At home, and I mean, it's been awesome covering the teams, seeing the teams with success. Even the men's basketball team, a little bit of a letdown of the season after losing James Johnson, but they had a great run in the Paradise Jam, giving UConn a run for their money. Great. Once they started hitting their stride, they started having a good regular season in the NEC. I mean, this was a season to remember. All 4 teams giving us something that we can remember, topping it off with quite possibly the perfect way to top it off. One day, NEC championship, the only one this school will ever see. And the men's hockey team making it to Atlantic City for the 2nd time since 2005.
It's really been a remarkable season for the winter sports teams. We've seen everything. The men's basketball team taking UConn to double overtime, to the men's team being the #1 team in the country for men's ice hockey, women's basketball winning the NEC championship. Like Nick said, we even saw Kristen Eklund score a goal. So everything has happened at the bank this year. It's been a truly remarkable season, and it's not over yet for 2 of the teams. Next week, we'll be talking about women's basketball, men's ice hockey. Women's basketball may be continuing. Men's ice hockey will know where
Definitely be continuing.
We'll know where they are in the tournament by then, so we can talk about that. Talk a little spring sports next week. Until then, for Nick Dench, Kevin Noonan, Gary Gorecki behind the scenes, I'm Zack Daly. Thank you for joining us on Bobcat Blitz.